Welcome back to Inside Bremerton. Now we're in this big classroom space at the Kitsap Historic History Museum. I want to make sure I say it right. Kitsap County History Museum on 4th Street. And we're at this fabulous display. And joining me for this segment is my friend Kathleen Cahall. Welcome, Kathleen.
Thank you, Char.
Kathleen is our Water Resources Manager for the City of Bremerton. What does that mean, Kathleen?
Well, Water Resources Division in the water utility, we manage the water supply and the water treatment. We take care of all the reservoirs and the pump stations and make sure that all that good clean water gets to people's homes.
That's excellent. You've worked for the city for quite a long time, my friend.
Yes, going on 26 years.
26 years. Kathleen is a water professional. She went to school to be in a biology degree. Is that what you mentioned, Kathleen? She is extremely devoted to our drinking water and the water system in our city of Bremerton. And do you know how fortunate we are to own our own water system? We are very fortunate.
Very special.
It's very, very special. Kathleen, tell us about, our city was incorporated in 1901, so we had our centennial in 2001. 2017, we're celebrating the centennial of our water system.
Right.
Pretty cool, and you've done a fabulous display here. Let's talk a little bit about it. But first, we want to hear the value of water. Sorry, I jumped a little bit ahead.
Oh, that's all right. But there are few things more important in our daily lives or to the vitality of our community than safe drinking water. And it's something that it's easy to take for granted, but worldwide there are 2 billion, with a B, people that do not have access to safe drinking water. But in our community, it's available 24 hours a day. So that's something very special that we need to think about, and that's kind of the purpose of our exhibit and our celebration of the water system, is to remind people about the importance of this great resource we have.
What we take for granted. We turn on the spigot, we turn on our hose, we turn on the shower, and the water's available for us. Kathleen, how many people are served by our city water system?
Well, in Bremerton system, there are 55,000 people, plus the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, so they are our largest customer. So a lot of things that happen at the shipyard throughout history have affected the water system.
And it is very, very important. Kathleen had an interesting statistic that I heard her mention off camera about cell phones and toilets. Give us that comparison.
Well, in the world, there are more people that own cell phones than have toilets. Again, another statistic to remind people how lucky we are in the United States and in our community to have good drinking water and good, safe sanitation facilities. We're very fortunate to have those things. Other people in parts of the world don't have those.
Don't even have it. They might have to, women or children mostly, would have to hike, take a long walk to get water and carry it back to their camp, their home, their hut, wherever they live in. If you're involved in a Rotary club like I am, Kathleen's involved in Seroptimus, these organizations are committed to worldwide activities that help people get water and have clean drinking water. It's a major focus of Rotary, major focus.
Yeah, lots of humanitarian groups, and that's a good thing for people if you want to do something to help somebody else, help them get safe drinking water is a great way to do that.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on this, number one, this really beautiful display. This is the back room of the History Museum. And Kathleen, how long will this display be up for citizens to come look at?
So the exhibit on the drinking water history will be here through April 7th through the end of September 2017.
Excellent, excellent. So you've got a lot of time. Please come down and check it out. But if you don't have a chance to do that, Kathleen's going to tell us all about it. So Kathleen, let's start with this.
Oh, let's start with this. Well, Char, as you mentioned, the city has been around since 1901, and back then the water came from springs that just popped out of the ground, or very shallow wells. And the population was only about 2,000, maybe roughly, and it was a very rough and tumble western town. And then again, with the shipyard needing water and the town getting bigger, a private system started a small water system and that occurred until until the city purchased the water system in 1917. But this is wooden pipe. So
This is wood.
This is wood. So back in the old days, real old days, water pipes were made out of wood. Either they would bore a hole through a log, or they would put what we have here, wood stave pipe. So there's strips of pipe that they would attach with wire and then coat it with a protectant, usually a creosote, so sometimes these don't smell too good. But so that was very common throughout the United States until the about 1920s. And we have one of the photographs we have in the exhibit is some of our distribution people putting in wood stave pipe. So sometimes when we put in a new pipe or we're digging in some construction, we run across some of this old pipe, and they're really good about cutting me off a piece and bringing me a wood stave. This is a smaller one. We have some larger ones, but this is one of the things that we have in our exhibit at the museum.
It's very cool, and it really caught my eye, so I'm really glad you were able to show us.
Set it there.
Great. So Kathleen, let's talk about, what is on display here, and let's talk about the history of our water system, because it's huge, 100 years of having our own system.
Right. Well, the city wanted to purchase the water system in 1912, but ran into some difficulty with the franchise agreement, so it went to court. And it ended up in the Washington State Supreme Court before they could work out all the ins and outs of that agreement, and the city could purchase the water system in 1917, and it cost $225,000.
That's a lot of money.
It was, back in if you convert that to 2017 dollars, that's about $4 million. But it bought entire water system, so that's a pretty good deal. Mm-hmm. Well, from the get-go, the water system needed a lot of maintenance and a lot of improvements. Again, with the World War I, the shipyard was doing a lot of work. They needed water. We had folks coming in to support that war effort, so we needed more water. Mm-hmm. So the first water system for the city was some of the small creeks in the area, streams, so Gorse Creek, Anderson Creek in the Port Orchard area, Charleston Creek, those were our first sources. So that was pretty good. We were able to move along. During the Depression era, we had some help from the WPA, the Works Progress Administration. They rebuilt actually, what we call Pump Station 1, and that's out at Jarstead Park. So some folks that might use Jarstead Park might see that old building there. It was built in 1934 by the WPA. It is no longer in use. We would love to do something with that historic building. Right. Of course, funding is always an issue, but that's something in the future we would like to do. So then the next phase of our water system in the city of Bremerton also is then during the 1940s in support of World War II. And in the 40s, the population of Bremerton went from 30,000 people to 80,000 people, which is amazing. We're at about 40,000 people right now. So in the mid-40s, 80,000 people were here. The shipyard was going, gangbusters, round the clock, supporting the war effort. Our water use skyrocketed along with the population. So we needed something more than these small streams for drinking water. So that's when the city first put in groundwater wells, and we put those in near Anderson Creek. We still use those wells today. They were installed in the 1940s. They are some of our biggest groundwater supplies. So that was started in the 40s. Today we have about 12 wells that we use for our drinking water. So that was during the 40s.
You hear stories from the 40s when literally Bremerton went from 40,000 to 80,000, people sharing beds. So a person would sleep during the day, then go to work. So somebody then would get off the day shift, go to sleep, or the night shift. There was really creative ways of fitting 80,000 people into our town.
Yeah,
and people were working. And if you could imagine, sometimes we think, oh, this traffic jam getting out of Bremerton. Could you imagine 80,000 people here?
Hard to
imagine.
It's
amazing. It's just really amazing. But please continue, Kathleen.
All right, so we'll enter the 1950s. we had a water superintendent, Cliff Cassad, and we kind of consider him our most famous water employee from the past, him the father of our modern day water system here in Bremerton. But he was a person of such amazing vision and foresight. And it was through his vision that he planned to have a surface water system on the Union River. So the city had purchased that property. There had been a large fire in that area in the 30s. And he had a dam built. So that is Cassad Dam. The city named the dam after Cliff Cassad. And that is our surface water supply that today serves about 60% of our water. So about 60% of our water is the surface water from the Union River, and the 40% now comes from our groundwater wells.
How was the dam built? Was it funded by the federal government? Or
No,
the city funded it?
City funded it through bonds. It cost in 1957 $2 million. That today is equivalent to about $20 million, which is a lot of money, but we don't think we could build the dam of our size and caliber today, even if you had $20 million. It would be a very much a larger amount of money and a much bigger project. We are very fortunate in Bremerton to have that surface water supply and to own the watershed around it. That's very critical.
Extremely critical and extremely guarded by our water resources employees. Not many people get to go up there. If you get to go see the dam, which BCAT did in, holy moly, I think that was 5 or 6 years ago, absolutely phenomenal. And then the watershed, Kathleen, how many acres are there?
Well, 3,000 acres in the Union River watershed. Now, the water utility in Bremerton owns about 8,000 acres of forestry land. We own that land because, like I mentioned, some of those watersheds used to be used for water supply. We don't use those anymore, but we have wells in that area. So we have 8,000 acres. 3,000 is a Union River watershed, but we protect it so closely because we are one of the few unfiltered water systems in the country. And the way we're able to stay unfiltered is we protect that water system, the watershed, and don't allow any recreation or other activities that could impact the water quality. So it's really important. Those trees and that forest acts as our water treatment, essentially. So it's something that's, again, very special. It helps keep our water quality as good as we can get it. It's essentially the rain that falls out of the sky into that reservoir, and that's what we're drinking. We do have to disinfect it, but we don't have to do much else. And because the elevation of the reservoir is so much higher, several hundred feet above where it comes in the city, then that water comes into town by gravity, so we don't have to pump it. So we like our surface water. It helps keep our water rates low. In the 1970s, that was a big era for drinking water systems of regulation.
Okay.
So in 1974, there was the Safe Drinking Water Act. That's a federal regulation that protects public health and ensures that water systems follow very specific rules and regulations. We test the water for lots of different things and make sure that we protect public health. And that in Washington State is handled by the Washington State Department of Health. We work very closely with our regulators to ensure safe drinking water.
Great.
And part of how we do that, so our water quality is great, but it is required to be disinfected, and we do that with chlorine, and we used chlorine for many years. That does a great job, but in the mid-1990s, there was some regulations that were passed that for unfiltered drinking water systems, we had to add an additional disinfection. So in 2011, we installed what you were referring to, which is our ultraviolet treatment plant, and that does use ultraviolet light to help disinfect the water. It's very effective. And we're very fortunate that treatment system was purchased. That was funded by the federal government through stimulus funding. The city got two stimulus grants. We got $6 million for the water system to put in ultraviolet, and then our sewer utility received $6 million to add sewers to the Gorst area, a place where that was a very big environmental impact. So we were very fortunate to receive that federal funding.
Kathleen, does somebody go out to the dam and put their eyes on the dam, checking it every day?
Every day we do that, and it's folks from the water utility. Some of that is water resources, some of that is for our forestry division. We also have patrols that are performed by the police department. Again, that's a very good collaborative agreement we have there with our Bremerton Police Department. So they're out there. So if people are trespassing or doing things they ought not out there, they will encounter potentially the police that will see to it that they don't do that.
Yeah, you get in trouble.
Yes.
Don't do it. Because really it is so pristine and
that's your drinking water.
And it's
you
our
don't want to do
drinking
anything
water.
to mess that up.
You know, we really want to really protect it. So where have we come since 2011, Kathleen?
Well, 100 years later, we have the theme for our 100-year centennial is from a visionary past to an inspired future. We get lots of inspiration from those that went before us that made such good decisions and had such foresight and vision. So we hope that we carry that on to the future, and to the folks that come after us will have that same inspiration.
Kathleen, you do such a great job, and we want to commend your intern because I know you had help putting this exhibit
the
up.
exhibit, yes.
Yeah, it's just very good.
That's Nick. I'll put a little word in for Nick, our intern. Yes.
Nice job, Nick. You can see valves in the room. You see maps. You see now everything is pretty much digital. Is that electronic per se? Can you check meters and check things?
Yes, a lot of things are digital. So one of the exhibits, and this is our distribution people put together a beautiful exhibit on our water meters and kind of the history of water meters. And in the old days, they had to manually check them and walk house to house. And now we're able to do that through radio signals. Right now we drive through and gather those signals, and we're looking in the future that we can have one antenna and can check people's water use just remotely. Then in the water system, my folks, we use a remote system to measure a lot of the water quality measurements can be done remotely and get information on the levels of reservoirs and pumps that are running, and we can manage a lot of those things remotely.
Thanks for joining us on Inside Bremerton. Our water utility is so important, and drinking water is so important. I want to thank Kathleen, our Water Resources Manager, but before we go, Kathleen, there's a big award that our utility received. Tell us about it.
Right, so we're very excited. Our water utility was presented with a Source Water Protection Award from the American Water Works Association. This is a national recognition of Bremerton's exemplary protection of its water supply. So we're very proud as the water utility. It takes all the employees in the water utility to make that work, and we're very grateful for that recognition. Thank you.
Well done, well done. We want to thank the Kitsap History Museum for hosting us today. We talked to Dean Tingey, awesome resource at your museum, and also please come and see our display on our 100th anniversary of our water system for the city. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.